Hello and welcome to another episode of Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today I am joined by Steve South of Caplin Systems. Steve, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Toby, how are you?
Very good indeed, thanks. Very good indeed. Listen, lovely to have you on the show. Excited to hear a little bit more about Caplin actually, because it's been a company I've been watching for a while now, and it seems that you guys are doing really well at the moment. Tell us a little bit about your background in Caplin, if you kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So starting with myself, so I'm the CTO here. So I've been at Caplin just over 12 years now, which is quite amazing, I think, in this industry. And definitely. I joined essentially as a junior, as a graduate. I'd done a lot of web design since I was young. I think, back to when the internet was really first emerging, building websites and all of that good stuff. And although I was doing kind of freelance work, I missed working in a team. Came into London, wanted to find somewhere to end up, and it was just a great bunch of people, even back then. And I'm still here, obviously moving through the ranks. I've mainly focused on the web side, so JavaScript and HTML5, of course, and through all the transition that we've had there over the years, and moved to leading teams, delivering trading applications around the world, which is really what we do. So Caplin started really with real-time web streaming technology. So going right back to, again, the early days of Internet Explorer 5 and Netscape, and really pioneering real-time distribution of data, initially with a hardware device, actually, but then very quickly it then became some software sending prices essentially out to the browser. And that's really where we started. And we still have our core streaming products. But over the years, then we've built more and more around that. So front-end JavaScript libraries initially, allowing our clients to build HTML5 trading apps in the browser before really many other people were doing it, and now moving more to complete solutions for different kind of asset classes, so different solutions for foreign exchange trading, mobile applications for bonds, funds, equities. So yeah, there's a lot of strings to our bow, and still really enjoying it and helping to grow the business.
And that's I love those sort of stories of man and boy in a business, and sort of coming in there over 12 years and sort of seeing that sort of I guess grad through to boardroom is a great story.
Yeah.
What's sort of kept you engaged in that? Because as you say, it's not usual, and you don't see too many carriage clocks in this industry anymore.
Yeah.
And yet twice in the last 2 days, I've done shows with people who've sort of come through from entry level to board, and I love that. Tell me a little bit about that sort of journey.
Yeah, I think it starts with the people. Say, from the first interview, and I still remember it 12 years ago, just a great bunch of people doing very interesting things. At that point, I've been doing JavaScript, HTML for a long time, but coming in, people are building trading applications with this technology, and it was a great bunch. And then it moves on to the technology and the interesting things that we do, and how we've continued to extend and enhance what we do over the years. So we're not just doing streaming now. We're always looking to innovate, looking to do more, looking to provide more out of the box for our clients. Ultimately, it's all about making trading applications quicker and easier to build and deploy. And I think that ties into some of the things we're going to be talking about today with the cloud and taking that next step to really, managing services as well and helping our clients to deploy things more quickly as well as just build them.
Yes, speed and ease has been the sort of catchphrase and cost, I guess, have been the catchphrase of this year. And if you look at what cloud's done for the industry, it's absolutely nailed all of those areas above. Tell me a little bit about this is a huge subject, but trading in the cloud has been this has been the sort of poster year for cloud-based trading. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen and some of the sort of core meta themes in all of that.
Yeah, so it's definitely been a process over the last few years, which we've been keeping a close eye on. As often we are on the technology side, we're very keen to use new things, use new approaches. Sometimes banks in particular are maybe a little bit more cautious. So we've been itching to go for a long time, but it's taken, I think, the very senior parts of the board within the bank to really drive it and say, look, this is something that we have to do. It doesn't makes sense in many cases for banks, financial institutions to have big data centers, to be doing that work when Amazon, when Google are doing fantastic work in that area. And it's really a big part of what they're doing. And so initially, I think we saw them saw our clients start with maybe simpler deployments, so lift and shift, so taking RESTful services, maybe even just a RESTful service that shows the location of ATM machines. So starting small, starting simple, proving it out. But now, as you say, I think it's really to the point where people are becoming more and more comfortable in the security and the performance of the cloud for trading apps. And it was almost the final frontier, or the last piece of the puzzle to get that confidence. Because of course, what the first questions you get asked about security and latency and performance, are these things going to hold up? What kind of uptime are you going to get? So really exciting that we're at this point now where we had our first experience was early 2019. We had a client, a crypto trading company, interestingly, who deployed themselves to the cloud on top of the Caplin platform and our front end technology, and that was a great step for us. Really proved it out. We thought it was going to work, but it proved it out, and that's been running really, really well ever since. And it was nice that it was on the crypto side as well. Obviously, very security focused and very performance focused. So it was nice to tick that box with that early customer. But now it's just accelerating, as you say. With we've got two new projects starting up on the foreign exchange side, both of which will be in AWS in the cloud. And so we just see it growing over the next year.
So you mentioned there, security, performance, and latency. The sort of trifactor of fear that sort of held this back for many, many years. Yeah. And obviously it's been a sort of seismic shift that's allowed this to sort of gain traction. How's that confidence built over the course of this year? And do you see that as sustainable there afterwards? Because we know how conservative the banks have been about adoption of the cloud over many years now. Yeah. And it's been one of those sort of almost self-inflicted wounds that the industry's had in terms of being able to digitally innovate through its through its conservative nature. And it's understandable why it's being so conservative about it at the same sort of stage. This has given us the sort of fuel to push that further forward. People have spoken about years worth of digital innovation in the space of months at the start of this as well. And it looks set to last. Is that what you're seeing? Do you see that? And how are you combating those, what will be persistent concerns, even though they're probably being monitored around performance, around latency, around security? Yeah. What's the message on that?
Yeah, I think firstly, credit's got to be given to the cloud providers themselves. I think Amazon and I'm sure others have done a lot of work directly with financial institutions to prove their credentials, to work with them on the compliance requirements, whether it's signing NDAs or maybe knowing partly where certain data centers are, obviously limiting the location of data and where it can go. So it's certainly been on that compliance and security side a big initiative, I think, for the cloud providers themselves, and that's paying off. And when you actually then look at the services that they provide and all the work that they put into it, I think very quickly you start realizing, well, actually, they've done a much better job than I could do as a small team within a bank. Who the amount of controls, the amount of security, the options that are there, the different architectures that are available to use to make sure that security is tight is going to be much stronger actually. With something like AWS in the cloud than it would be in your own data center where you're trying to do all of those kinds of things yourself. So I think that's a key point on security and compliance. I think on the performance side, then it's interesting because obviously with trading applications, latency is a key part, and that's where maybe in the early days things fell down a little bit, where you didn't have complete control, and the options for compute and networking weren't quite there. But that's really with our platform been about us testing it, doing a lot of work, trying different configurations and writing tests and proving that. And there's a interesting mini project we did over the last few weeks actually, where a client who is looking to go to the cloud early next year was looking for trying to decide the right region to go for. And very, very quickly, we wrote a quick test kind of log into our platform, check latency. And within an hour or so, then we just deployed that in almost every region in the world, giving them that confidence. Look, here's the numbers. I actually send you the test. You run that, you choose the region, see what latency results you're getting, and we can go from there. And the latency was very, very good. So we're confident in the low level latency numbers, but of course there's always great flexibility in rolling out the Caplin platform in additional regions closer to the users, in scaling up, scaling down. And like I said, with the project that we've had in the cloud for the last couple of years, we've seen very good performance there as well. So I think we're getting there, and that's only going to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key things you mentioned there is just the influence that AWS has had on everything that makes it that much easier for I guess there's confidence is a massive thing in change and in innovation as far as I'm concerned. It's building that confidence. And I've actually just finished, where is it here? Just finished reading this recently, which is a real sort of playbook for becoming a digital leader, and it's incredible to see that journey that Amazon went through with AWS, and it's and when you see a giant like that moving into it to do as well as it has, as quickly as it has, because you sort of forget how quickly the adoption of AWS as a technology business in its own right has been from it. What are some of the advantages around that, and how they presented themselves? Well?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been close to those meetings, but as far as I'm aware, there's been lots of direct targeting, obviously, of financial institutions right at the top level, going in there and convincing that, look, we can save cost, obviously, but also we can do it better and we can do it more securely. And that was always the concern early on. Oh, I'm going to put the data in the cloud. Where exactly is it? What does it mean? I think explaining exactly what that is and what it isn't, and the fact that it can be controlled and that you can still secure the data and you can still be compliant was a big step. And I think that clearly took a bit of time, but certainly over the last 2 or 3 years, I think that's been the case. And then it's always about benefits outweighing risks. And I think we're clearly at that point now where all of the kind of benefits I've just described, they clearly outweigh any the risk of security because they're not really there. I think you've got to trust the AWS protocols and all the controls that they've got around that, and people seem to be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sort of brings on to that sort of I guess if we're talking about challenges and concerns, one of those is sort of speed and scale, and how quickly things move dynamically around that as well. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing there, and overcoming those challenges, and how you're supporting companies to do that as well. Yeah.
So speed. I think with our projects, again, going back to that initially, the speed of projects, the speed of designing, of implementing, of deploying a trading application. These are multi-month projects. We like to keep them multi-month. Sometimes they can be multi-years, but it's more in that 4 to 6 month sweet spot of let's design something, let's build something, let's get it live, and let's get feedback. We like working in an agile way. We like to get something out there, then iterate and improve. And what was always interesting with those projects and the speed of those projects was that actually, in order to do that, procuring hardware in a bank, you had to do it from day one, or maybe even before you'd signed the original contract, to have any chance of hardware and of servers being there for your 6 month go live. And the amazing step forward is that's just completely gone. As I said, even with that latency testing, we could very quickly just deploy throughout the world. Yes, we need a client to choose maybe their first region, but other than that, a day or so, here's a test environment which we can then start integrating. So, and that's key, because it's time is money, and it's far more efficient to get something out there very quickly, get feedback, rather than going too far down the line, obviously, and having to change later. So that's kind of speed of the project, speed of the deployments themselves. I mean, you've got huge options. You've got memory optimized options. You've got CPU optimized options. But our technology itself, I mean, the Liberator is still hand coded in the C. So we've got great performance out of the box anyway, which leads to good performance in the cloud, but it leads to reduced cost in the cloud, because the more efficient the software is that you put in the cloud, then the more you can kind of save money and be dynamic about how you utilize the compute. So Yeah, absolutely. As far as scaling up and down, we've recently released a beta version of the next iteration of our Caplin platform, which includes a new discovery component, which is all around dynamic scaling. It's all about running one liberator, going up to 10 during the week, going down to 1, and similar with all the adapters that come from that. So yeah, dynamic scaling is a big part of what we're doing with our deployments now as well.
And there's also other sort of unique challenges that sort of come around, through this as well, and customer journeys through the cloud with all this, such as persistent streaming and such like. Tell me a little bit about how you're helping there too. Yeah,
I think this is one of the interesting ones. As I said early on, the lift and shift projects we were seeing at the banks were the RESTful services. So certainly there are challenges with moving those kinds of systems. But when you're thinking about a real-time trading solution with persistent negotiation between a client and a trader, then it starts getting a little bit more complicated as to how you scale up, scale down. So you don't want, during a negotiation, you don't want your machine to disappear. You don't want to fail over to another system which doesn't know about that trade. And so that's really looking at that life cycle and understanding how you scale up, how you scale down, which messages when you do it, and which messages you send maybe to the client application. So in the case of that trading workflow there, we've got functionality within the platform that during a scale, you don't just turn it off. You put it into a holding pattern. You tell the client, okay, this machine is going to go away at some point. Once all of the clients have kind of finished their negotiation, then the processes can scale down. So it's just a little bit more control about that process that is needed when you're dealing with essentially these real-time persistent trading streams, which is obviously interesting from a technology point of view, and we've got a lot there out of the box which can handle that.
And I guess as someone who's come through from that sort of grad developer through to CTO, seeing those interesting challenges are one of the reasons why you stayed there, to solve real complex issues all the way through that sort of period as well. And it sort of continues to develop more and more different problems and opportunities and everything that's uncovered in between it. Yeah. And one of those things is that we are living in a smaller and smaller world, and companies and particularly in the financial services sectors are multi-location and global businesses. Regional rollouts, and again, the sort of concerns people have about latency around there as well. And I go back to 10 years, probably about 8-10 years ago, everything was all about the race to zero latency, and that was your trading advantage, right? And I guess to an extent it absolutely remains that as well. But speed is key, and on regional rollouts, that's going to have that's going to have concerns for businesses as well. What's being done around that, and what's the resolution there?
Yeah, I think that the key thing here is designing the deployment and the application so that that's as easy as possible, and that's what we have. So the vast majority of projects will start with a single region. Some may be multi-region for failover reasons, but really with most of our projects, we see that the source of data itself is usually in one region. That it might be in Madrid, it might be in London, and so the first place you start is somewhere close to that. But then as you grow, as maybe it's more of a global offering, then you can start to put additional instances of the Caplin platform, but also your core components potentially in different locations. And again, it goes back to how easy that is. When once the initial deployment is there, we're talking days, not months as it used to be. And so it gives you those options, whereas previously it could have been prohibitive, either cost-wise or time-wise to do that. It's giving clients much more flexibility to look at their usage patterns, to look at where their users are, and potentially deploy additional services closer to certain users to give them improved caching, improved performance, lower latency between them and their browsers. So it's been great to see that happen, because it's still kind of magical. It was so much easier now than it used to be to do those kinds of things. It's great having a build just right. Okay, stick one in Madrid, stick one in London. It becomes that kind of discussion instead of long drawn out processes of procurement of servers and putting them somewhere and all of those kinds of things. So it's great to be able to focus on the deployment, focus on the software and the solution far more than, I guess, the machines themselves.
Yeah. That's been the long drawn out slow march to death of procurement has been a sort of thorn in the side of the industry for a long time. It's good to be able to see the speed that's been able to replace that as well. Yeah, we touched on this before, and everything is sort of involved around it. Innovation has been the word in trading technology throughout the course of this year, and cloud has obviously allowed that to be happening a lot more with it as well. Caplin it's got a reputation, from my viewpoint of it, for being a really innovative company and helping support innovation as a business. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen there and how it's really worked over the course of 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. So the cloud certainly helps here. I think it started, so we restructured the way that our teams work early on in the year. We used to have different size teams. We used to have teams that work on client projects, teams that work on product. We changed all that early in this year to have consistent pods, as we call them, same size across all the pods. And more cross-functional teams. So teams working across front end and back end, teams working on products and client projects as well. And that's given us a few benefits. One, I think, is keeping teams together a lot more. So kind of building those bonds, but it's also helping driving innovation, because we have regular dev days, we have regular hack days, where we give those teams who have now got that strong bond, the ability to work on projects that they're interested in, things that they would like to do to drive the business forward, things that we should build, improvements that we should make. And the great thing is then the cloud has made that a lot easier, because it's the same thing. Not only is it quicker to, you need some machines to deploy a proof of concept that you've been working on, or a tool you've been building, whatever it might be. It's also the services there. It's also, maybe I need a database to try something out. Okay, well then, use something in the cloud and it can stay there. I need different types of machines. Okay, you can use that. So it's nice how those things have tied together, and we're seeing the developers and development teams just making a lot more use of those cloud capabilities which are out there in order to help drive that innovation.
That's really interesting, isn't it? This sort of cross-functional team has been something which has probably happened more this year than ever before, because of the circumstances. Was that a route which you were always going down, or is it a route which sort of necessity has bred innovation, or what was the thinking behind that? Was it all about collaboration?
Yeah, collaboration was a big one. I think just one of the challenges we've had over the years, as you've probably got from this conversation, we do quite a lot at Caplin. We've got a lot of different products. We've got a lot of ways that we can help our clients. We can provide the low-level technology. We can provide complete solutions, and that is one reason why I've stayed, because it's never dull. We're always doing something different. We're doing something new. From a development management point of view, that has been a challenge, because you've had people moving around, working on different teams, doing different things. Projects come in, restructure teams. Projects finish, you do the same, and one, that was just challenging from a resourcing point of view. So we thought, let's not do that. But also, we were changing teams too often. And the hardest thing about teams, I think, is building it initially and getting that camaraderie and getting the understanding and the balance right within the team. And if you're changing teams too much, you're doing that all the time. And I think that's a challenge that we've had. So it was, I guess, a bit of an experiment that we did at the start of this year, but it's been really successful. And now we've got teams who have been together most of the year. And absolutely, it was before we all obviously started working from home, but I think we've absolutely seen benefits from that. Whereas before, we might have temporarily, maybe someone was working on their own on something, or in a pair. Now we've had those teams that got together before this all happened, and they've stuck together. So you've got a little bit more of a support network there, which has continued from January through to now, which I think has been a big benefit. And then it's just the continuous improvement. It's much easier to do that as a team once you understand each other, once you know how you can improve. So we're seeing lots of efficiency improvements, and we're seeing lots of just generally improvements on how the teams are working, and how quickly they're delivering, and the quality of what they're doing as well, because it's much easier to continually improve. And certainly around the innovation side as well. You've got people together constantly chatting about ideas, and then it's about giving them the opportunity to do that, whether it's in our dev days, which are once a month, or hack days we do a couple of times a year, which kind of 24-hour hack day type thing. So yeah, I think the move to cross-functional teams was something that we obviously needed to do as part of that move to pods, and it's something that we're definitely seeing benefits from. So we have front-end technology, we build obviously the UI, we also have the integration point, we build the back end, and having a team delivering end to end, we've seen improvements there. And it's not about our engineers, I think, being jack of all trades and always having to cover the full stack. It's more within the team itself. So although naturally engineers will end up doing probably a little bit more across both sides, people still have their preference, or they still have their expertise. It's more about that pod itself being able to deliver functionality and deliver projects end to end as a team, instead of handing things over to the fence to different teams and so on. So yeah, we've absolutely seen benefits from that. I think maybe we were quite lucky with the timing there, and that the teams have had that support network over the last 6 months or so.
And the productivity of seeing a team that I imagine was very office-based suddenly dispersing, this has been a natural benefit and plug into that as well, to allow productivity to improve, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely. It's again, it's funny. So we already had one team. So we already had 4 or 5 engineers and QAs who were working remotely, because they'd maybe spent a good number of years at Caplin, and maybe they were moving back to their home country or hometown, and they continue to work remotely. So although people at Caplin would often work 1 or 2 days a week at home, we had 4 or 5 who were permanently remote anyway. But again, at the start of the year, they were kind of spread around different teams. So we maybe had a team with 1 remote person and so on. We decided, because we could see, I think, that the rise of remote working is clearly happening and was happening anyway. So we actually put all the remote workers together. And again, it was a bit of an experiment to see how does that work? Is it better to have everyone remote? Would they lose that connection with the office, and see how that goes? So we already had the 1 remote team, with a view to, over the coming years, maybe doing that more and more. And then obviously, given the situation over the last 6 months, actually suddenly overnight, the whole team is remote. And so it was quite a natural move. It took a couple of days settling in, because of the way that we run the projects. Obviously, you've got everything in Jira, everything is kind of remote anyway. I think it was a fairly natural move, but it certainly accelerated, I think, plans which were already underway, which was to be more remote. I think the big question now is, when things settle down, how does it continue? And it's going to be very interesting. Certainly, there's going to be more remote. I mean, again, I think going back to productivity, it's an interesting one. I think we've been unbelievably productive. It's amazing what the team have done, and how they've managed to take on the challenges and continue. Almost to a fault, in that clearly we're worried about burnout. I'm sure you feel the same. You don't get out the house as much, especially now the nights are drawing in. So yes, it's great, productivity is high, but we're also spending a lot of time making sure people have breaks, making sure that people are getting out of the house, and something to definitely keep an eye on, I think, over the next few months, before we can maybe start seeing each other a bit more.
So this is one of the my great pet subjects at the moment, Steve, where we're talking about how companies have sort of adapted, and I think it's sort of surprised everyone about how well companies have performed through this, and I think it as I said, necessity breeding innovation has been something which we've seen dramatically here. You're talking there about something I'm really interested in, which is your dev days and the hacks and such like, and what that's built. Yeah. Have you had physical and demonstrable gains from that sort of stuff? Are there things there that are changing the shape of the business? Or
definitely. Yeah. So it's interesting. Obviously, a number of companies, I think, have tried these kinds of things over the years. Obviously the big one I think was the Google 20% time, which I don't think they have now. They had it at some point and it goes away, and that's generally what these kind of initiatives end up being, is that they work for a while and then maybe real work takes over and it's easy to kind of forget it. And so that's been the challenge, and we've been a little bit like that. When I first joined, it was very much the kind of 20% 1 day a week, but the problem is no one ever took it, and so that's always the challenge when you have this kind of approach. How do we encourage it? How do we make sure it happens? So last year we changed it, where instead of it just being this thing which you could do, it was something that everyone does. It's in the calendar. There's 1 day a month. It's in the calendar for everyone. If you can't take it, that's fine, of course. But gradually, it becomes a thing, and that's what people do. And project managers get used to it, and everyone gets used to it. And like you say, it's about getting value out of it as well. And I mentioned earlier the new discovery piece of our platform, which allows scaling up and down far easier. That was a Hack Day project from 2 years ago, and there's lots of examples like that. Of it might take a little bit of time to feed through to the product, but if you don't have these ideas and you don't try these things, then it never happens. So it's really important to keep up with those things. Even when you're busy, and we're very, very busy at the moment, and there's lots of projects, but it's a challenge. It's a challenge from a management point of view, not to for those kinds of things to be the first thing to drop. But I'm really happy this year. We've had them once a month, lots of interesting projects that come out of it. And yeah, the Hack Days as well. So that's similar, but it's a little bit more of a competition, 24 hours, get together in a team with prizes and so on. So we've managed to do that as well. And not just the product ideas and that actually flow through to what we do. It's not just about that. I think especially now, it's also just a bit of a break. It's a bit of a break. Maybe you might do some online training. You might just do something which isn't your project. And again, I think that's really important at the moment, where people are waking up, opening their laptops, getting into it, working on your projects. It's nice to do something a bit different, a bit of training, play around with something in the cloud, whatever that might be. So yeah, we've really been working hard to keep that going, but I completely believe it's the right thing to do as a business as well, because we get great ideas out of it, and it gives people, I think, headspace to learn and try new things.
I want to finish on one thing, Steve, where I love listening to people with a real passion for what they're doing, and this innovation, and you can see the sort of delight of you're looking at when you're finding new stuff and building new ideas and products and solutions from your team. And I've got this sort of very interesting sort of juxtaposition from two of the recent conversations that I've had. You on one extreme, where we're talking about we do lots of different things, we solve lots of different problems, and we have it, through to another one where and I'll quote it directly, where we were talking about making sure that the company focused on one thing and doing it really well. And there's two different strategies there, both of whom which have very, very compelling sort of reasons behind it. Sort of be and this is completely the wrong phraseology, but a jack of all versus the sort of niche specialist. When you're there and you've got various different things, as Caplin have, that provide numerous different solutions to various different problems within it, where does that really work for you, and importantly your customer?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge. It's something we deal with. I think we've always got too many ideas probably than we can handle. I think the reason it works with us though is that they're layers, really. They're not completely different things. They're layers. So the core streaming technology is critical to our complete out-of-the-box solution, because it gives us those solid foundations. Similarly with our front-end frameworks, they're used in our solutions. So although there are a lot of different products to work with, they all tie together and they all have their place in ultimately the solutions that we're delivering to our clients. And it also just means that we can help clients in lots of different ways, depending on what their needs are. If there's a development team that is looking for an HTML5 toolkit or a streaming platform to help accelerate their trading project, because we've used ours to deliver these applications times, we can help them with technology. We can deliver the technology, we can provide some training, away you go, deliver your own project. On the other side of it, we've got complete solutions. And we can do everything in between as well. So I think that's why it works for our clients. It means we're flexible in how they want to design and deliver their application, whether they want something highly custom or they want ultimate quick time to market. So I think that's the key, really. They're not completely separate. It's really layers of an offering, and we can pick and choose, I guess, how we use that to then help our clients.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Individualization and making sure it's personalized and bespoke to each customer to solve their problems, rather than saying that here's your problem, which may or may not be high on the agenda. Is every client's different, everyone's got different challenges, although similar sort of themes behind it, and being able to sort of tailor that and give the best solution rather than this is what you get from us. I've always going to say is the best way of approaching a customer, and it's great that it's working really well for you.
Yeah,
Steve, I know that this is a subject that's been so heavily on people's agenda over the course of it. So I cannot believe that there's anyone watching this who who hasn't got questions about trading in the cloud and want to take some of the bits of gold that you've spoken us through so far and discuss it further. If people are watching this and want to find out more and about what you guys are doing and the passion for the cloud at the moment, what's the best way of them reaching out and getting in touch with you?
So Caplin.com obviously has our team. We'll have contact details on there. My email, steve.south@caplin.com. Feel free to drop me a note. And yeah, it'd be great to chat.
Fantastic. Listen, it's been wonderful speaking to you. Lovely to hear a little bit more about the business and what's been going on through it. Looking forward to the more anniversaries for you as you continue the sort of journey through that business. And I'm pleased that it's working so well and everything's going well for you guys and your customers at the moment as well. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Brilliant. No problem. Thanks, Toby.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you very shortly on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.